breaks as well. Dan Ryan Express lanes heading inbound, a little sluggish between 43rd and the Stevenson
Hey,
Expressway.
everybody. How you doing? Hope you had a wonderful weekend. I got a lot done this weekend. So I was really glad about that.
At 3:55, there's a report of a
I hope
crash.
none of you were traveling on American Airlines this weekend.
Heading eastbound between Route 20 and State Road 49.
I think that there's a lot more to this than the corporate media are saying.
Both directions. That's traffic.
I think the vaccine mandates have a lot to do with these.
Eric Grants invites you to the family meeting every Sunday, 4 to
people
6
who are.
p.m. for conversations.
I think it's just weather disruptions. If the weather disruptions were that prominent, I think they'd be a major news story, don't you? What do you think?
Life is already full of surprises.
I didn't even think about it that way until you just brought it up. So I should tell you something.
Yeah, because I'm like, if it's the weather,
University of
then
Phoenix
the weather's a big story.
Protecting you from rising tuition
That's not
costs.
what I'm hearing.
Our tuition guarantee.
And they keep trying to tamp this stuff down. I'm like,
so you can count on fixed
it's a
affordable
mistake.
tuition from the moment you enroll to the day you graduate
Just
through the
start
program.
telling people. All they do is read press releases from corporations. That's all they're doing.
We know we can't protect our kids from everything.
So anyway,
Eventually,
hey
they're gonna
everybody,
bump their
how you
heads or
doing?
scrape their
Hey
knees.
Linda,
But we can protect them from 6
A
types of
King
cancer.
from Push Memphis.
HPV, or human papillomavirus, is a
Hey.
common cancer later in life.
Up from the
The
north,
HPV
Shirley from
vaccine
beautiful
prevents
Philadelphia.
human
Daryl,
papillomavirus
how you
and all the
doing?
cancers it can
From
cause.
Columbus, Ohio.
The American Cancer Society recommends getting your
All
sons and
right.
daughters the HPV vaccine starting at age 9.
So everybody,
to protect them
please, if you
later in
can,
life.
go on over to my YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show channel.
WCPT 820.
It'll be coming up in a hot
Chicago's
second.
Progressive Talk, where facts matter.
Got a lot to talk about today.
Eric Grants invites you to the family meeting every
We're
Sunday.
going to be talking about the
4 to
Virginia
6
race that is looming large. We've got a big race up in New York with
never know who's going to drop
a
by
young woman
on
who is
WCPT
very, very
820,
progressive.
Chicago's
But
Progressive
we have
Talk.
got this Virginia race. Every Democrats are putting a lot on this.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am free.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Happy Monday. Monday, November 1st, 2021. Can you believe it's already, we're 3 weeks away from Thanksgiving. I love this time of year. Love it, love it, love it, love it. And then 4 weeks after that, Christmas. Oh, love it. Can you believe that 2021 is sped by so quickly? I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. And I've got Dr. Hatch calling in, Devin, so let's give him a call because I think we're going to have him up to do some good news just in a couple of minutes. And please, let us talk today about the Virginia race. I'm getting some feedback. The Virginia race. And we are going to be talking about COVID-19. You have to get ready for the holidays now. We've got to develop these protocols. Dr. Deborah Verholden and Dr. Shanina Knighton are going to help us with that. And we're going to talk about election 2020 and build back better. Indeed, Bernie Sanders is saying, look, we still have an opportunity to strengthen the social spending bill ahead of the House vote. He said, so don't give up. Don't give up. We're going to be talking about that today. Got a lot on our plates on the Santita Jackson. So let us just get to a few of these headlines, everybody. Let's get to some of these headlines. Chicago, we're going to have a high of 47 degrees. Can you believe it is this cool already? That's right. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 43 degrees, mostly sunny. Major League Baseball, well, it's turning out to be an exciting World Series. Atlanta 5, but guess what? The Astros 9, everybody. Atlanta still leads the series 3-2, but we don't know what's going to happen. They have been roaring back. The NFL, the Vikings, well, they fell to the Cowboys. The Cowboys 20, the Vikings 16, and the Bears, well, they fell to San Francisco. Come on, you guys. San Francisco 33, the Bears 22. And in hockey, the Senators will be playing the Blackhawks tonight. right here in Chicago. World leaders are gathering in Glasgow, Scotland, for some of the most important climate talks in decades, everybody. More than 120 leaders will speak today, setting the case, setting the tone for 2 weeks of negotiations that will hopefully end with a firm global plan to take on climate change. Indeed, we are the Maldives are being threatened with extinction, everybody. The prime minister of the Maldives is looking for a country to settle everybody, all of his citizens. That's how serious climate change is. The Maldives, within the next few years, will not exist as we have known it. House Democratic leaders are pushing for votes on both the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill and the $1.75 trillion economic plan. As soon as tomorrow, progressives are supporting it. Many House progressives signaled yesterday that they likely back both bills. What do you think about that, everybody? We're going to be talking about that today. Do you want just a little bit more in it? Let me know what you think. 773 763 9278. 773 763 WCPT. More than 5 million people around the world have died from COVID 19. Staggering threshold was passed early this morning, according to Johns Hopkins University. Our love and prayers go to everybody. Hope that you are not traveling this weekend, because once again, we saw some major fallout from the airlines. American Airlines saw so many flights canceled, and they said that they were preemptively canceled. They called it deja vu all over again. 700 flights so far on Sunday, adding to more than 1,000 already called off airline as they struggle to recover. Nearly a quarter of their mainline operations went down. Do you think it was just because of weather? All right, everybody. So let's get right to it. Do we have Reverend Marshall Hatchup? Uh, I want to speak with him this morning. I want to get some good news. How you doing, Pastor Hatch?
Yes, good morning, Sister Santita, and good morning to the audience.
Good morning, New Mount Pilgrim Baptist Church. Boy, oh boy, what a great pastor. What a beautiful cathedral he has. You need to get on over there and see it, everybody. And what is the address, Pastor?
4301 West Washington Boulevard, Chicago, 60624 on the Great West Side of
Absolutely,
Chicago.
absolutely. And some of the most beautiful and the largest renderings of African American civil rights heroes in stained glass in the world are in that church. It really is a cathedral. It is a cathedral, and I hope that you all will get on over there. Pastor Hatch, what is the good news today?
The good news is from the Old Testament, Gideon and the Midianites, Judges chapter 6, verse 13. And that is where Gideon, you find him complaining and bemoaning. The angel shows up, the messenger says, "You're a mighty man of valor." But Gideon says, if God is with us, if the Lord is with us, then why do all these bad things happen to us? Why are we in this shape? Why are the Midians overrunning us? Why are we suffering? Why are we demoralized? If God is for us, if the Lord is for us, then where is God? If God is, where is God? And we sometimes mistake and mislabel life, and therefore we miss God. In other words, God moves and we call it a coincidence, or we call it luck, or we call it almost, or we call it just in time. Or sometimes we say what happened was, trying to explain something. But let me tell you something. That was all God's grace. Every coincidence, every almost, every just in time, every what had happened, every just enough, that was the grace of God. In fact, when we're looking for the miracles of God, I got to tell you, when you read the Bible, and Judges is a great read in the Old Testament, most miracles are not supernatural, but all miracles are naturally super. Listen, I remember just a few months ago, maybe this time last year, and there was this sort of right-wing prophetess. I think her name is Paula White, and she was doing one of those intense, charismatic prayers, and she was praying for President Trump's reelection and said, "God, send angels from Africa." And little did she know that the answer to her prayer was there would be people from the African diaspora, and they were living in Detroit and Phoenix and Philadelphia and Atlanta, and they were flipping states. In fact, the angels from Africa already lived in those places, not necessarily in the way she wanted prayer to be answered. The reality is that there were angels, and they were people who were the descendants of slaves. Listen, when the angel shows up to Gideon in the middle of the oppression of the Midianites, the angel calls Gideon a mighty man of valor, even though Gideon is scared literally to death. And what the angel is really saying to Gideon and saying to us, you are the ones you've been looking for. You are the ones you've been waiting for. Interesting that Gideon is called a mighty man of valor, even though he is afraid, even though he feels inadequate, even though he feels hopeless and despondent. Listen, when we recognize our own worth, when we see the grace of God, when we recognize the grace of God and stop calling grace coincidence, luck, just in time, when you see just enough, almost didn't make it but did, that's when you see God. The reality is the revelation to Gideon and to us, we've heard it in other circles, political circles, we are the ones that we've been waiting for. And so our challenge really is, Santita and the audience, listen, our challenge is get up and go do it today. Because whenever you show up, God is there. The old folk used to say, if the Lord wants somebody, if the Lord needs somebody, here am I, and here I go. Listen, beloved, the revelation of the day is that there are miracles every day. And you're the miracle. If you're looking for a miracle, look in the mirror. You're the product of grace. You're the product of coincidence, almost but did, luck. It was all God. And finally, whenever we get back in church and one of these days we'll be able to hold hands again, I believe it. But I can't help but remember those old services when we join hands and sing, blessed be the ties. And then we'd say, the tie that binds us in Christian love. And then we'd say, if you're looking for a miracle, if you want to know what a miracle feels like, you're holding my hand. This is what a miracle feels like. So I want you to go and do it today and know that when you know your worth, when you recognize grace, you found the miracles of God. Thank you, Santita.
Thank you for blessing us today. Supernatural? No, naturally super. You're a miracle. I love it. I love it. I love it. Pastor Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, brilliant theologian and pastor on the great west side of Chicago, New Mount Pilgrim Church. I hope that you will go over and see this cathedral. What's the address again, Pastor Hatch?
The address is 4301 West Washington Boulevard, Chicago 60624 on the Great West Side.
Well, you need to get on over there because these are some of the largest stained glass renderings of our civil rights heroes that exist in the world. It's something that you need to see. And we thank you for your sensitivity and your sensibility in making that happen. Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, we just love you so much. Thank you for being with us today. Everybody, let's get right to it. Oh, you know what? I want you to keep listening to Pastor Hatch because we have got two of the most esteemed persons in the field of health. Dr. Deborah Verholden is with us every morning. This is her segment. We talk about health. She's an epidemiologist, comes out of Johns Hopkins University. She's the Associate Dean of Public Health at Michigan State University's School of Medicine. And she helps us to really understand this pandemic and this moment in which we find ourselves, and much more than the pandemic, because we're going to be talking about vaccines, and other things that you need to do to make sure that you are healthy in this moment. And she's brought into our space Dr. Shanita Knighton, infection preventionist. I'd never heard of anything like this before. But, we do need an infection preventionist, this registered nurse, this clinical research scholar from Case Western Reserve University. We do need to know how to prevent infections. It's amazing in a pandemic, Dr. Verholden. No one's telling us to do that. But you said, in addition to these Thanksgiving protocols, you said you want to talk about testing. Why do you want to talk about testing? What is the deal with testing?
So the reason I want to talk about testing, and good morning.
Good morning.
Is because I appreciate you so much for bringing up these Thanksgiving protocols now. Why do we need to be talking about them now? Because now you actually have enough time to plan your work and work your plan. The time to prepare for holidays is not a couple days before. We've all had the mad dash where the grocery stores are full of people who are in there the day before, everybody mad, ain't no more black eyed peas left, or ain't no this, all of that, right? But you can't, this is not one of those times where we want to do that. And we've seen this in the past where people were trying to figure things out and take on strategies in the week before or the days before holiday. And that is simply just not enough lead time. So the reason I wanted to talk about testing is because this notion around holiday protocols is a really important one. And testing is an important part of a safety protocol. And let me tell you why. And I've said it before, I don't agree a lot of times with some of the stuff the CDC says and does. And I don't know that I'm necessarily in disagreement with them, but they have joined the fray of people with an overemphasis on the vaccine. And the reason that's problematic is because for logical people, it doesn't make sense. Why, if I'm vaccinated, do I not have to wear a mask? But if I'm unvaccinated, I do. If vaccinated people can still contract COVID. And in fact, it looks like the vaccines are actually not that effective from stopping people from getting it, but rather from stopping them from getting really sick. The logic won't make sense to a reasonable person. What really matters is not whether or not you're vaccinated, it's your COVID status. That's the most important thing to reduce spread and transmission right now, is to know your status. So such that if you're positive, you are putting yourself in isolation, you are taking yourself out of interacting with people so you don't be a spreader. That's independent of whether you're vaccinated or not. Logically, let's think it through. If you're vaccinated, you can still contract COVID. Remember, the vaccine does not sanitize the airway. It doesn't sanitize the throat. And that's how most people are getting COVID. It's coming in through their nose, coming in through their mouth. That's the majority of cases, right? So if your airway is not sanitized, you can get it. Your body will start to mount whatever defense. You'll get whatever viral load you'll have. And for many people, they will be very low symptomatic or asymptomatic. They'll have very few symptoms or maybe no symptoms at all, but they could still infect others. That's actually a risk that we might see with the vaccinated, that they might actually be the person spreading it, even though they themselves are not getting sick. People keep pointing to, and I had a nice little healthy argument with my cousin over the weekend, who's the only clinical psychologist in her hospital in Saginaw, Michigan. And she said to me, the problem is the unvaccinated. She said, "Cuz you can say whatever you want. I'm in the hospital every day. 80% of the patients who are in the hospital with COVID are unvaccinated." And I said, yeah, but that's because the vaccine is doing what we now really know it will do, which is stop people from getting really, really sick, reduce the chances of people getting really, really sick, and reduce the chances of vaccinated people having to go in the hospital. That doesn't mean that we don't have unvaccinated cases out in the community. So this notion that if you're vaccinated, all bets are off, feel free to be out unmasked, you're good. It's a dangerous notion. What people need to be doing is getting periodically tested as a function of how much they are out in the world.
Explain that.
If you ever have a known exposure, okay. So if you ever have a known exposure, you were, like we in Michigan, we have something called the My COVID Alert app. It's Michigan, so they put the MI on everything, and everything is my whatever. So it's the My COVID Alert app. So if I'm in a restaurant, and here's what's cool. I don't have to sign a piece of paper. I don't have to do nothing. I signed up for the My COVID Alert app 8-9 months ago when it first came out. And then if somebody in the My COVID Alert system, and I don't know, maybe 20% of the state has signed up for the My COVID Alert. So everybody's not in it, but it's enough people in it that if I can track COVID, the testing database communicates that to My COVID Alert. Anybody that has been around me within that period will automatically get an alert. You were in close proximity to a known COVID case. So it's now automatic. I don't have to sign anything. I got my cell phone on. The My COVID Alert app knows where I am. If I test positive, it will alert anybody else that has enrolled in My COVID Alert that they've been around a COVID positive person. So if you are COVID positive, or you've been around somebody who's COVID positive, you should go get tested. If you have any symptoms, you should go get tested. But those are the two obvious ones. The less obvious but more important one for stopping spread is getting tested even when you're asymptomatic as a function of potential exposure. So if I tell people, if you are going to work 5 days a week, I would recommend that those people get tested once a week. If you're going into an office 5 days a week, I would be getting tested 1 day a week.
At the end of the week, in the middle, when should they do that?
Honestly, it really doesn't matter, because here's the reality. It takes about 3 or 4 days from when you've been exposed for most people to develop enough viral load to come up positive on a test. So it's called cadence testing. It's the rhythm and the regularity with which one is getting tested as a function of how much people are being exposed. And I'm really disappointed that the CDC hasn't come out with some protocols and recommendations on that, because people really don't know. And the only reason I say once a week is because once a week, if you were exposed, you would have if you just got tested once a week, let's say you say, I'm going to go get tested every Wednesday. Okay? If you get tested every Wednesday, worst case scenario, you would have no more than about maybe 4 or 5 days from when you got exposed to when you would know, and no more than about 2 or 3 days when you were potentially exposing others.
Well, hold that thought.
Right? Because you have that. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you then. Okay, because we've been hearing that many people, not all, many people, most people are not being given these therapeutics, these meds, until they have a heavier viral load. I always thought that was crazy. They didn't do that with Governor Abbott in Texas. As soon he was asymptomatic and vaccinated, as soon as he was diagnosed, they gave him Regeneron, and he's out and about wreaking havoc. What do you say? Should people start asking for monoclonal antibodies and therapeutics as soon as they test positive?
It's an interesting question.
I got a minute.
If you do, it doesn't ensure that you're going to get it.
That's right.
So we should have a conversation about that too, because I would offer that anybody that's COVID positive, especially if you're going to the hospital, you want to have your support system, your family, friend, next of, contact, etc., real clear on what your wishes are. Because oftentimes when people go in the hospital, end up getting hospitalized for COVID, they are not the best self-advocates, because those people tend to be really sick. So we should also talk about that.
Absolutely.
Because asking for it won't ensure that you'll be able to get it.
Which is what I think is problematic, because everyone knows. Look, I am not an epidemiologist. I am not a registered nurse. I just know that the earlier I treat anything, the better off I am. And I would think that the same would be the case for COVID. We've got to figure out not only vaccines, we need those, but we need therapeutics. You need to be treated, everybody. Dr. Deborah Furhold, an epidemiologist, Associate Dean of Public Health at Michigan State University's School of Medicine. And we are going to bring on Dr. Shanina Knighton on as we talk about these these Thanksgiving protocols. I cannot, this is so helpful. I cannot wait to talk with both of you on the other side of the break. And when we come back, everybody, I want to find out, we're 3 weeks away from the holiday. What should you be doing right now? Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show with Dr. Deborah Furhold and Dr. Shanina Knighton. Back in just a minute. Dr. Deb, boom, mic drop on that.
Yeah, I want us to have our own protocol, which adds testing. That's the most important thing, Santita. The most important
But
thing.
why have they not emphasized that?
Part of me is like, and I ain't even gonna lie, when I told you I did this thing with Dr. Umar, I didn't really know him so well.
Oh,
I don't follow
do.
him. I know who he is.
Oh yeah.
And all of that stuff. My daughter is a huge fan.
Absolutely.
And I just expected this, kind of belligerent, ill-informed. It was quite the opposite.
You know what it reminds me of?
Yeah.
The first time America and the world really got a chance to see my father speak, the first time they saw him was July 17th, 1984. He'd been in public life 20 years. Every time you saw him on the news, you saw him at the height of his passion. And he was, okay, at the climax of a sermon or a speech. This was the first time they got a chance to see him. And I think that's what happened with you with Dr. Johnson. Because all these folks who have a lot of different ideas and thoughts, they ain't crazy. Look, we love Dick Gregory. You talking with someone I miss right now. Someone you listened to. Now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Sebi. I mean, there are people out here who have also helped to change lives too. So, I mean, when I found out that when you told me you were on with him, I said, oh Lord, this.
But let me tell you what's interesting that he said. It was so cool. Because I was pleasantly surprised. So we all have to check our own bias.
Mm-hmm.
I have to check my bias. I have to check my privilege all the time. And there's a myth that privilege is you got to be white or wealthy or whatever, and that's not the case. And I actually always thought of privilege as something that was unearned, and it actually doesn't have to be unearned. It really is just advantage. Whether it's fair or not is a whole nother question. So everybody, check your own privilege, check your own bias. So I had a bias, right? Because I'm like, another one of those. And then as he's asking questions, and he was very respectful. Mm-hmm. He asked some really good questions and some tough questions. And then one of the questions that I answered was, why would you say that? Tell me your reasoning for saying the vaccine is safe and effective. So I answered that question. And he said, now here's what I want to really know. Is that what you really know, or are you just parroting the FDA and the CDC? I thought that was such a good question. I did not take offense to it. He wasn't, because you can tell sometimes it's the spirit
he wasn't
and the
being
vein in which
snarky.
somebody is coming at you. Yeah. He wasn't at all, but he's just saying, listen, a lot of what a lot of the scientists are doing is just helping to interpret and regurgitate what is coming out of these large agencies, which I don't trust.
But Deborah, that's what they do on the news.
Yeah.
The news, they don't investigate anymore. They just give you, they get a PR sheet and they read it. That's it. You got 30 seconds before we come back up.
I thought it was perfect. It was a great question. And I said, well, you know what? That's a great question. And this is what I know from what they say. This is who I really do trust, the National Medical Association, who has their own task force and is also being able to get their hands in and review data. I have my hands deep in the data in my own county and in my own state and blah, blah, blah. And here's what I can say, from that.
Okay, make it real quick.
No, it's not just that. It's a combination of places where I'm getting information from and and then my own data. But what a great question to ask. Like, with what authority and knowledge and foundation of information are you making this statement?
I mean, are you doing some investigating for yourself? And many people are not. They're not.
Yep.
I mean, about anything. about anything.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. At 45 after the hour, we're kicking off election 2022. Yeah, it's 2021, but it really does begin tomorrow, and all eyes are on Virginia. We're going to have that's right, make it plain, Reverend Mark Thompson will be with us. He, of course, is from the Make It Plain podcast. He'll be on in about 15 minutes. We want to know what his thoughts are, and then we'll talk with Gary Flowers from Richmond, Virginia, about what's happening in Virginia. And then, of course, we're going to have on Robert Patillo, Dr. Deb's favorite. But you know what? He got you to Dr. Umar Johnson. Before we bring up Dr. Knighton, your gift to us, how much time do we need to get ready for the holidays, Dr. Verholden? We're 3 weeks out from Thanksgiving.
Well, let me say, there's a lot we can do in 3 weeks. You know, there's a whole lot we can do in 3 weeks. And I want to make sure that I'm not one of the people who are adding to people's confusion, because that's never, ever my intention. You know, because I try to give my best knowledge, insight, understanding. I got great colleagues, so it's something that's sort of, I'm starting to really be more mindful of what I don't know. So I can say, I don't know, but I know somebody who I trust who does, who this is right in their wheelhouse, right? So in an ideal world, I would have encouraged people to be vaccinated. 3 weeks is not enough time for that full experience unless you are getting the Johnson & Johnson. And I can understand why a lot of people may have a reservation about that. But with 3 weeks of prep time, and I'm not going to be one of those people that's going to try to keep shoving the vaccine down people's throats, but I do think people need to be vaccinated. I do think that's in people's best interest, you know, as long as they don't have any health problems or other things that would prohibit them. So with 3 weeks to go, you should now be having the conversations with the people you plan on doing Thanksgiving with. If you are doing Thanksgiving with anybody outside of your home, if you're doing it just with people inside your home, you should already have the sort of rules of the house in place. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like we have protocols in my house. All my kids, you know, they all drive. They're all young adults. I have a 19, 22, and 23-year-old. They all have hand sanitizer in their car. They give out masks here, like so many masks. I haven't even had to buy a mask in so long. Even all of our testing sites, when you go to get tested, they give you a bag of masks, right? Mm. So my kids are very good in that respect. I, know that we are very mindful now when we're out in the world. Not fearful, mindful of when we're out in the world and how we're out in the world and all of that. So you've got 3 weeks. What you need to first do is have the conversation with the people you plan on having at your Thanksgiving. What are the rules? Do the people that come to your house have to be vaccinated? If they're not vaccinated, do you want them to have a test before? If they are vaccinated, do you want them to have a test before? Are there rules about who they can bring? You know, we all got that relative that want to come to your house or come to your cookout or whatever and bring somebody with them and didn't run that by you. In my family, I got a couple of places where I know we can go and you can do that because the householders' trust in me extends beyond me. So they trust me enough that they trust whoever I would bring. Similarly, I have relatives who the trust starts and stops with you. Sweetie, I trust you. I don't trust who you trust, but I do trust you. So you're welcome. These are all of the things that need to be discussed in advance with people so that there's no upset or people popping in or popping over on Thanksgiving. And then you need to think about, okay, if we're having this, how do I make my space as safe as possible? Right? And of course, people are saying outdoors is best. I went out this morning and went on a nice little light walk jog this morning in Michigan. I don't know what the temperature is, but I was freezing. I actually was moving faster so I could get my body temperature up because it was so cold outside. I cannot even imagine having Thanksgiving in Michigan outdoors unless you got some super stellar patio with outdoor heaters and all that stuff. So most people, in this part of the world you know, to the north and to the east will not be having outdoor Thanksgiving. They'll
Absolutely
be
not.
doing indoor. Yeah, and then so what happens, right? Like I remember what we did last year, and mind you, we did pods last year. So we had a pod in my house. We joined with one other pod, and I have a nice front porch with like sliding doors. We had that open. I said, let me make as much space as I can so that we're not all on top of each other. It sounds silly, but we play games. That's what we do with my family on Thanksgiving. And I have this big, huge, beautiful sectional on a table with little stools and little boxes underneath that serve as seating. I pulled all of those out, and I even pulled the sectional back. So even though we were together, my pod sort of was on one side, the other pod was on the other side, and we had more room to spread out. So I actually even slid the couch back a little bit so the area that we were in was bigger. I had the window open, and I had the ceiling fans on, and I had a fan, one fan blowing air in and one fan blowing air out. A lot of people won't want to do that. Why? Because I also had the heat on. And who wants to run the heat while you got the windows open and all these other things, right? So that might not work for some people, but for me, that made good sense. Better air circulation, more spacing for people, like that whole thing. Because last year, this time, vaccines weren't even an option.
Sure.
Vaccines weren't even an option. It's a new era now. And I told you, I had my baby shower for my daughter, and it was a vaccinated-only baby shower.
Mm-hmm.
It was only for people who were vaccinated, and for the people who were unvaccinated but wanted to celebrate with us, we did a drive-up shower
Sure.
For them in the hour that preceded the actual 2.5-hour shower. I said, I don't want to exclude anybody, and I want all my family to know, I love you all, and whether or not you're vaccinated is not the problem. What we could not risk was my daughter, and it was a mass event too. I did not want to risk my daughter contracting COVID until she was fully vaccinated, because, I didn't want her or my unborn granddaughter to get sick. Yeah.
Well, hold on. You know what?
So,
I'm sorry. No, I want you to finish before I bring on Dr. Knight, and I've got about 5 minutes before we go on over to politics. No, I mean, because you're giving us so much to think about. I mean, and we have enough time to do something now. If this is not what you want to do, the Monday before the holiday, y'all. Come on. Dr. Deb. Hello? Mm-hmm. We don't want to do this the Monday before.
We have time now. 3 weeks is a good, 3 weeks is, like I said, it's not enough unless you're getting the Johnson & Johnson. And I believe you don't get the full, I can't remember if it was 2, 3, or 4 weeks after your J&J jab where you get the full benefit. But, honestly, the J&J seems to be a lot less effective. Mm-hmm. In the face of Delta, and now almost all of the cases that we're seeing of COVID are Delta or Delta plus. And so I'm sort of telling people, if you are gonna go ahead and take the plunge and get vaccinated, this is for the people who still are holdouts and still have not been vaccinated. I would be more inclined to get Pfizer or Moderna just because the effectiveness seems to be better as far as prevention of contracting and having symptoms and severe symptoms from COVID.
But you won't be.
So there's not quite enough time for that. But there's enough time to get one dose in and then put in your great preventive measures. Because here's what I'm almost certain of. No one's having Thanksgiving at their house and requiring everyone to be masked. That's just not happening. And even if people did that, as soon as the drinks come out and the alcohol comes out or the games come out, or the game comes on the TV and people start hooping and hollering and shouting at the TV and all of that, those protocols go sort of right out the window. So I think it's more important that people think about, how do I prepare my guests, right? How do I prepare my guests? What are going to be the rules for people who want to participate in Thanksgiving at my house? How do I prepare my house? What do I need really to have in my house? Like I said, we got a little station. When people come in, you clean your nose, you gargle, you do your hands, like that. And we haven't had any problems. And I actually didn't find out until about 2 weeks later, had a visitor in my home who was asymptomatic, but in fact was COVID positive. And we did not contract COVID. That person used my bathroom, everything. And we did not contract COVID. So I think that's what people need to be thinking about and putting in the very practical things. These are the things I wish the CDC would talk to people about. Just telling people to get vaccinated is not enough. Because even if they were vaccinated, if everybody at the party was vaccinated, it doesn't mean that somebody there won't potentially be shedding virus and able to get other people at the event sick. And here's what's really bothersome: that if you got a bunch of vaccinated people together, and then somebody was positive, and then some of those people went and then infected others, right? Because all those people are going back somewhere. All of those people are going back to their homes. On Monday, some of those people are going back to an office, or back to their workplace. So I think what's more important is that you plan ahead, think about what are going to be the rules at your house. How do you get yourself ready? How do you get your guests prepared? And how do you get your physical space prepared so you can fellowship and enjoy your Thanksgiving, but also be as safe as possible? And then every day, if you want, we can just add a little bit on what that might look like.
Well, absolutely. We've got Dr. Santita Knighton with us. I've got to move on to politics today because we've got a really, really big day in the electoral cycle that 2022 begins tomorrow. But Dr. Knighton, I've got about 3 minutes before I have to make this hard switch. And tomorrow we're going to focus even more on infection prevention, what we can do because you and Dr. Deb go deep on this. We really, really need to walk this through. In fact, I'm going to call my brothers when I get off the air today to make sure that we are on track for what we need to do for the holidays, because we'll all be together in about 3 weeks. In about 3 minutes, what would you like to add? Because tomorrow what we will do is really continue to walk through these Thanksgiving and Christmas protocols, because we're not too late. It's not too late for you to get vaccinated now for Christmas, right, Dr. Deb?
Yep.
Okay, now you
and be fully vaccinated and have the full benefit by Christmas.
You have a 7-week window, but we also have to begin to fight for therapeutics, everybody, because indeed you need it all. Oh, Dr. Deb has talked about this Swiss cheese model, but 3 minutes, they belong to you, Dr. Knighton.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I was going to say Dr. Deb did a great job with summarizing everything up. I would just reemphasize what she mentioned in regards to testing, and that is making sure you have small crowds, making sure your guests get tested no later than a week before Thanksgiving, and even showing up with a negative test. And even two, making sure you confirm with guests that they are not having any cold symptoms. And there's a lot of good questionnaires on the CDC website that are accessible in order for you to do that. And most of us, if we have been in public spaces, are asked those 5 to 7 questions to help us determine if we are at risk or been in contact with someone with COVID. She already talked about indoor and outdoor ventilation. I would say in terms of setting up the tables for the food, making sure guests have as much space as possible. And then I understand, like, a lot of people like to eat buffet style. I don't think that that's a good time because not everyone is going to sanitize their hands in the same manner. And the other issue that I have is people may be masked or unmasked, and they having conversation as they're going down the assembly line getting the food, but they're not realizing that they're actually talking over the food that other people are getting ready to receive, just by trying to have fellowship while going down the line and putting food on their plate. It might even be a parent simply asking their kid what they want on their plate, or a wife screaming to a husband saying what you want on your plate, and you're screaming over somebody else's food because that's the same food that everyone else will have to pick from. Also, too, with the buffet style, everyone's touching the same serving utensils. And I know this is something that I also talk about on a regular basis. So I don't encourage self-serve, and I would also suggest that everyone eat at the same time, so that way the food is being plated by the same individuals, everyone is eating, and you're not worried about the hovering.
Well, what about carving that turkey? What about carving that turkey? You know, that's like a big thing for Thanksgiving. 1 minute.
Well, I would just say, like, somebody, the person that is carving it, to make sure that they have a mask on. So have a mask on. Also, too, if they can, make sure that they're actually extending their arms opposed to hovering over it and carving it directly. And then also, too, just try to limit talking. Masks help to prevent some droplets, but it doesn't help to prevent all. There are no studies that saying that food itself can give you COVID. But let's be honest, germs are still germs, and you don't want anybody's germs on your food. That's the same reason why we don't want anyone coughing over something that we're getting ready to eat or something we're getting ready to drink. Mic drop.
Look, I need to sit down. I just really, well, you all will be back tomorrow, because you know what? I think by bringing this back in, I'm sorry, Dr. Knighton, you were going to say before we go?
Just really quick, make sure that the sinks are stocked with soap and plenty of clean disposable towels to dry your hands. You do not want to use the same towels in your bathroom, assuming that everyone's going to use that same towel to dry their hands, because not everyone is going to wash their hands good. And think about that towel being damp and the transfer of germs that is going to go on that towel because someone didn't clean their hands correctly, and that friction now being on that towel that many guests will use. So I do suggest that you use individual towels, and even put up a sign that says "Do not flush in toilet" to avoid the issue of paper towels going in your toilet. But absolutely use single disposable towels, and make sure that you have bottles of hand sanitizer around the house, including around the dinner tables, around the snack tables, making sure that you're at least wiping down surfaces, tables, doorknobs, countertops, light switches, and faucets once an hour, especially if others will be coming in contact with it. And then I would also, too, when it comes to children, you're going to have to be creative, possibly even limit kids or discuss what the interactions will be with children, considering a lot of them still may be unvaccinated, or like Dr. Deb said, even with the ones that are currently approved for children right now, if people are still on the fence or have vaccinated their kids at the last, there's still going to be time between when they'll be fully vaccinated and safe. And so start thinking through some of those protocols, and we can also talk about those as time comes around too.
We'll talk about this every day leading up to and through the holidays, because we need to hear this over and over and over again. It has to sink in, because I'm learning with you, everybody. We need to learn over and over. We need to hear this over and over and over and over again. Now is the time. We're marching toward the holidays. And Dr. Deborah Verholden said, we got to talk about testing. You need to understand how important testing is. And I want to thank you for bringing us into that awareness, because no one's really saying that. But you've been saying that, but you are emphasizing that now, because now you need to get tested as we are about to gather. Because you know what? No one's going to stay away from their family this holiday. That's not going to happen. So please, we got to be safe. And
I'd rather give people practical advice. You know, this is the thing. I come out of the substance abuse world, and we know harm reduction is major, right? So, trying to figure out how to keep people safe no matter what, sort of choices they make, right? Because in my ideal world, I would say stick with your family, stick with your people in your house, and da-da-da. But guess what? That has a cost, too. And people are tired. They're tired of not having the interaction. They're tired of not being able to be around their loved ones and all that. And I understand that, and people are going to gather. So it's like, okay, if you're going to gather, here's how you can gather and have it be as safe as possible.
And that's why they're going to be back in the morning. And we're going to talk about this. We'll be able to extend it a little bit more. But you know what, everybody, we are in election 2022. Got to get some more thoughts from you, Dr. Deb. And I'd like to hear what you think, Dr. Knighton, as we are fighting to expand Medicare coverage. And some people are fighting to contract it. So you know what? I love you all. Stay right there. We've got Reverend Mark Thompson. He has one of the one of the top 20 civil rights podcasts in the United States. Make It Plain. Brilliant. Well, he's a brilliant minister, great preacher. But he has one of the best podcasts you ever want to hear. Everybody knows him, loves him, and he gets some of the best interviews. Reverend Thompson, we are 2022 begins tomorrow. I mean, it's just like we just had a year of the Biden-Harris administration, but now We are looking at Virginia, I think New Jersey, a big New York City race. Wow. What are you expecting?
Well, first of all, good morning to you and to the WCPT family. Look, I'm listening to that last segment while I was on hold. I tell about that. I forgot what I was supposed to talk about. That was deep. I'm telling you, boy, that make you rethink your whole situation.
Well, stay
Stay
right there with that. Dr. Verholden and Dr. Knighton, are you still there?
We're still here.
Okay.
Lord have mercy.
Why did that make you rethink? Because this is stuff that we're not hearing. Don't you think we need to be hearing this, Reverend Thompson?
You're going to be doing this because
we do it every day.
This is November 1st. Y'all need to have this even closer to the holiday.
We're doing it every day.
That's real. Yeah, well, no, that's good.
Why do you think we need to do it every day?
Well, for people's safety. This is nothing to play with, and I think people are getting lax. And we're seeing numbers come out this morning. How many millions of people have died from this disease?
5 million.
I just saw something on TV came across TV just before
5 million.
You all called me.
Yeah.
And it was that COVID is now the third leading killer after heart disease and stroke. And that's for everybody. So you know what that probably means for black people. And I think people do get lax. A lot of people are getting lax. Probably not wearing their masks in certain places.
Probably. What? Come on. I see y'all protesting at Howard University, my school, sitting up there, masks half on.
I'm here with your father at Howard University. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, we in these streets.
Yeah, you in these streets, masks crooked. Dr. Verholden, Dr. Knighton, it's like it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, no, that's real. But this is probably what y'all did just now. It's one of the most sobering things I've ever heard. And as pressed as people are to get back out here and be around family, we get all of that. There's some precautions. Now, if you really want to add to another wake-up call, that I don't know if you covered this yet, Santita, and that I found out about this last week. With all of the travel restrictions now and the shortage in TSA people, the shortage in airline staff, the airlines have already said, they said it softly, maybe y'all shouldn't go nowhere Thanksgiving anyway because it's going to be a nightmare.
Well, it's going to be a nightmare because remember, we'll see what happened with American this weekend. Because they're having a soft boycott in response to vaccine mandates. So it's,
But see, here's another thing that people may not be aware of. The TSA is like, people are hearing about those of us in New York and police firefighters who want to get vaccinated. Half of the TSA is vaccinated. The other half could lose their jobs this week, too. So it's not going to be the TSA people. And when I went through Atlanta the other week, which is the business airport, God knows, they had like 3 or 4 TSA. It didn't even matter that we had TSA pre-check. We still had to stand in line for 30 minutes because there were no people working. So you put all that together, the masks, the food, the buffet. So it's talking about the buffet. Shoot, I don't want to eat. I'm good.
But you can have somebody serving it. One single person serving everybody, and you are good to go. Because everybody wants Amy's mac and cheese and so-and-so's greens and the brisket and all that, but have one person serving.
Baby, let me tell you something. By the time you finish listening to Dr. Knighton and Dr. Deborah Verholden, you will hide in a corner. You will never come out.
I might just stay at home, stay in the bed.
But they give us such great information. I just love it, love it, love it. We are walking toward the holidays, everybody. We will have Dr. Deborah Verholden and India with us in the morning, and Dr. Shanina Knighton, because, we have got to talk about this. It's too much. Let's talk about Virginia, everybody. Joining Reverend Dr. Thompson, we are going to have Gary Flowers from WREJ, Rejoice Richmond. It is the largest black radio station in the middle of Virginia. And you know he's got some scoop for us about this race, which they say is tighter than this. Tighter than this. The Democrats really need Terry McAuliffe to win. Will he be able to do it? What will that, if he wins, what does it mean? If he doesn't win, what does it mean? Let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show, 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Want to hear your voices today. And then Bernie Sanders says, you know what, there's still hope to add a little bit more to that human infrastructure bill. I'll talk about that too. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. All right, Dr. Deb. Whoop. All right, Dr. Knighton. Whoop.
Yeah, we're here.
Says they're there.
Okay.
Mindful and to make good choices and then be empowered to live through those choices, right?
Right.
Because the problem is I think a lot of people underestimate things. So if you have knowledge, that knowledge should influence your decision making. And then once you make a decision, what do you need to know and what do you need to do to have that decision actually be a good decision for you? If somebody said to you, you are going to have a ball at your grandmama's house on Thanksgiving, but in 3 months, that will have cost you a kidney. You might not go.
Yeah.
But you know, that's what happened to some people. They went to grandma's house for Thanksgiving, no protocols, no nothing, no preparation, prevention, nothing, contracted COVID, and then lost their kidney. And 3 months after Thanksgiving, they now have one kidney.
A whole family died or was hospitalized. That was last year behind having a gathering that actually made national news. So I wholeheartedly do agree with that. And I'm also going to say, because I know we talked about from the perspective of people coming to your house, but you also have to be cautious of when going to other people's house. I've completely gone to settings, have my mask on, feel
Sending Gary Flowers through.
like deuces. Like, I got to be out. I see y'all later. And I catch up later because it's like you're just in there and you see things that are just happening. I went to a funeral on Saturday, and at the repast, I was seeing a lady, like, literally, she was putting napkins on the middle of the table, but was trying to punch, like she had her fist that was like trying to make some sort of design in the middle of the table and had her hands all over the napkin. And then I watched her take those same fingers, and these were the plastic tablecloths. And y'all know how they used to do the grocery store method where you would like actually lick your tongue and just to be able to separate it?
No.
I couldn't believe she did it. I couldn't believe she did it. I had somebody do the same thing with trying to open up cheese yesterday. They literally put their mouth on the cheese container to open up the cheese.
Okay.
I'm like, people got to go in that cheese. So I'm telling y'all, like, I'm the worst friend to have around, like, when it comes to stuff like that, because I have to fix my face quite often.
I can't do it. And you want me to talk about Virginia? I'm listening to this. You want me to talk about Virginia?
Well, no, look, I got Gary Flowers. I pulled Gary Flowers before he goes on the air. But, you know, as we were listening, I was trying to move everything along, but I said, goodness gracious.
Lord have mercy. This real. Can I tell y'all something real quick?
But you know what? They need to go on Gary's show, too. They need to go on your podcast, and they need to go on Gary's show.
Put me in touch with them. But let me tell y'all something real quick. And then tell you why I like this a lot. And Santita, remember this. Years ago, doctors, in the 90s, I was on WOL on Cat View Station, and Dick Gregory was my co-host. And every Thanksgiving, we would do a whole week of shows about having a healthy Thanksgiving and not eating too much and getting sick, getting indigestion. And Dick would give advice, and people would call in, and we do recipes. It was a ball, you know. And now I'm hearing this. It's like, yeah, this reminds me of that, but in a different context of what we're dealing with today.
But you know what? Dick Gregory did give great information now.
Yeah. Oh, no question.
No, he did. Because Dr. Alvina Fulton, who was really the mother of what, well, see, I just remember growing up with her. She was 1,000. She's God's baby sister, God rest her soul. And she lived a long, long time. She was very, very healthy. She was very healthful.
Yeah.
And she is the one. We do not give her the credit, and we should, for this Whole Foods movement, for this health movement in our community.
Right.
She and Dr. Sebi, but Dr. Fulton was really ahead of everybody. And she trained Dick Gregory. She did do that.
Look, you know I know.
Okay.
Look, I'm already talking about ingredients and foods, and you're right. And I'm a nurse, and I'm going to tell you that that's the biggest time after the holidays is when people come in. They got bowel obstructions. They got all kinds of GI stuff going on. I'm talking about having to have surgery, having to have enemas, all kinds of stuff. So I wholeheartedly
what did you
agree,
eat?
and it's something that people don't think about.
Did you eat
But think about
glue?
all of the
What is
carbs.
that?
It ain't that, but remember how I had that conversation with you and how people get sick around the holidays?
Yeah.
Because all it takes is 75 grams of sugar to lower your immune system for 5 hours.
You know, let me bring on Gary Flowers. Gary?
That's a can of pop and pastry in the morning.
Oh, my gosh. These are people who I want you need to have on your show, Gary, to help them with these Thanksgiving protocols. Gary used to be the senior vice president of Rainbow Push. Then he traveled with Reverend, and he was our national field director for years. And now he's a big radio host down in Richmond, Virginia. But we need to walk our people through Thanksgiving protocols, Gary, and they need time. We're 3 weeks out.
Yeah, please connect me after the show.
Because you need to have them. This is
I
Dr.
want
Deborah Verholden. She's an epidemiologist. She's from Johns Hopkins. She is at the School of Medicine at Michigan State University. She is the architect of their School of Public Health. She's their associate dean. And we've got Dr. Shanita Knighton, an infection preventionist. Dr. Verholden brought her to us. She's a clinical research scholar at Case Western Reserve University. She's a registered nurse, but she's an infection preventionist. Look, she has a video on how you need to wash your hands. And you know I've been practicing.
Good. Because you know I love your protocol.
She thinks I'm crazy. She looked at me, Deborah, she gave me the side eye. She was like, this chick is nuts.
No, she has her own sink wherever she go. Let's just say that. She sprayed. She got her alcohol spray.
I done washed my hands twice since I've been listening.
60 seconds.
Okay. So I'm not
I'm about to
playing.
wash my hands again.
Yeah. Well, you know what? These women will make you do that. I'm like, I'm scared to see Deborah. I'm gonna see her next week. I'm scared to see her. But you know me, I'll have my spray bottles of alcohol. You know I got that.
It will keep you safe. People have no idea how important hand hygiene is and how it keeps people safe. And we have to remember during the days of the bubonic plague and other things, you got to look at who survived. And it was the ones with the best infection prevention practices.
10 seconds.
Yep.
And that's why she needs to be on television. I love Dr. Fauci, but guess what? I need Dr. Verholden. I need Dr. Knighton. Right there.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Monday, November 1st, everybody. We're 3 weeks away from Thanksgiving. We've been talking about these Thanksgiving protocols. We haven't even been able to get to the politics. We've been talking about what we need to do to get ready for the holidays. Of course, Dr. Deborah Verholden, epidemiologist from Michigan State University. She's their Associate Dean of Public Health. She will be back with us in the morning as we talk through what you need to do for the holidays. Dr. Shanita Knighton will be with us as well, infection preventionist, what you need to do for the holidays. We're going to be doing this every day up to and through the holidays because we need to be safe, everybody. Oh, wow. There's so much going on, everybody. So let's talk about Virginia. What is that going to mean? We've got Gary Flowers from WREJ in Richmond, Virginia. He's about to go on the air, but we're going to bring him on so he can tell us what's happening. They say the race is tighter than this. And of course, Reverend Mark Thompson is sticking around with us too. And then Robert Patillo will be on with us at the bottom of the hour talking about Bernie Sanders trying to reinforce his social safety net and what Build Back Better or the shadow of it will mean for the Democrats on tomorrow and going forward into 2022. Chicago will have a high of 47 degrees, mostly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 43 degrees, mostly sunny. Well, Atlanta is leading the World Series 3-2, but boy, oh boy, there was quite the game last night. The Astros 9, Atlanta 5. They head back to Houston. Will Houston take it, Oh, will Atlanta make it? I don't know. We will see. It's so exciting. The NFL, well, the Cowboys were triumphant over the Vikings. 20 Cowboys, 16 Vikings. And the Bears fell to the San Francisco Giants. San Francisco 33, Bears 32. And the Hawks, the Black Hawks in Chicago will be hosting the Senators tonight here in Chicago. Love it, love it, love it. World leaders are meeting in Glasgow, Scotland for some of the most important climate talks in years, everybody. More than 120 leaders will speak today, setting the tone for 2 weeks of negotiations that will hopefully end with a firm global plan to take on coal, cars, cash, and trees, according to UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Think about this, everybody. Maldives, that island nation, is expected not to exist in the next few years. In fact, their prime minister is looking for a place to he wants to move his whole country, all of the citizens, to other countries because their country is about to go underwater. Think about that, everybody. Think about it, think about it, think about it, think about it. We passed a grim milestone, coronavirus. 5 million people around the world have died from COVID-19. Staggering threshold was surpassed early this morning, according to Johns Hopkins University. Last week, the World Health Organization warned that the global COVID-19 cases and deaths are increasing for the first time in 2 months. Be careful, everybody. House Democratic leaders are pushing for votes on both the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill and the $1.75 trillion human infrastructure economic plan. We'll see if it goes through this week. Progressives have come around and they said that they will support it. And American Airlines, well, they said it was deja vu all over again. Nearly a quarter of the mainline operations for the Fort Worth-based carrier were sidelined Sunday after major cancellations. 700 flights on Sunday were canceled. 1,000 flights were called off before that since Thursday. Wow. What is going on, everybody? What is going on? They said it's weather, but I think it might be a little bit more than that. Let's get to what's happening in Virginia. They are saying that Virginia is as we're going to see what happens in Virginia. They said if Virginia falls to the Republicans, we've got a problem. So what do you think, everybody? What do you think? Will Terry McAuliffe be able to pull it out? And Reverend Mark Thompson, of course, from one of the most popular podcasts in the country, Make It Plain. It's one of the top 20 civil rights podcasts. Everybody, I hope that you will go and sign up for it. Make It Plain is fantastic. Make it plain, make it plain, make it plain. But Reverend Thompson, we have got our dear friend, Brother Gary Flowers, as Reverend Jackson would say, Brother Gary, former senior vice president of Rainbow Push and national field director for Rainbow Push. He is the host of one of the most popular radio broadcasts in the South, WREJ. WREJ, everybody, comes on just after this show ends. WREJ Rejoice in Richmond, Virginia. Gary Flowers, the race, they say, is tighter than this. Talk to me. Give us a tutorial on what we're looking at.
The mood is tense in Virginia for those of us who call ourselves progressives, or even just decent people, because what looms is a race that is far tighter than it should be. But either way, if McAuliffe wins narrowly or if he loses narrowly, it is not a good bellwether for the midterm elections for the Democratic Party, because it doesn't seem to be a devastating repudiation of people who support Trump, as in this case, the gubernatorial candidate Youngkin. And so the mood is tense, and we'll be watching closely. I'll be on the CBS affiliate tomorrow night looking at the returns come in. But we have 2 more days to get people to turn out. And quite frankly, as it is usually the case in an election right after a presidential one, the issue is turnout. And so far, people are not overly enthused in Virginia.
Why? What happened? I mean, everyone expected Terry McAuliffe to run this going away. What happened?
Well, one, people don't really like Terry McAuliffe. They tolerate him, but he comes off like a used car salesman. And I know, and his background as a DLC conservative in the Democratic Party in the Clinton machine, there's just not a lot of gravitas for him. And then secondly, when it comes to politics and policy, you have to articulate a plan that people and the voters, can attach to. And all he's saying is that Youngkin is a Trump supporter. So, politicking in the negative without a plan doesn't usually fare well for candidates.
We're talking with Gary Flowers from WREJ, Richmond, Virginia. What is happening in Virginia? Why is it so close? I mean, I've been a little surprised to see Governor Doug Wilder, the first Black elected governor in our nation's history. He's been critical of Terry McAuliffe. What's going on?
Well, because, once again, Terry McAuliffe represents the good old boy system. The part of the Democratic Party that called for Reagan Democrats in the Clinton years of the 1980s, the part of the Democratic Party that established the Democratic Leadership Council. They're corporatists in general, and so that doesn't speak well to working people's interest in Virginia. And I can't speak for Governor Wilder, but I believe that is at least part of why he's been critical.
So where's the Black community in all of this? Is the Black community is it a critical vote? Is it are they excited about voting? Are they just resigned to voting? And what does that mean?
As in national politics, the Black vote in Virginia is critical. And that's why we're working, doubly hard to motivate and energize people to come out and vote. And, in addition to the gubernatorial race, there is a major referendum vote in Richmond, Virginia, regarding the proposed casino by Kathy Hughes and her son, Alfred Liggins, who own TV One and Radio One. This would be the first Black-owned casino in the nation. And so we're mobilizing people on both counts.
So, I mean, what should we be looking out for tomorrow?
Well, Northern Virginia is going to be critical because where Terry McAuliffe would have had a stranglehold on Northern Virginia, there are a lot of conservatives who are supporting Youngkin. Also, the southwestern portion of the state, the rural areas of Southwest, have to mobilize in a major way because they tend to trend red.
Reverend Mark Thompson, what are you hearing? What are you seeing?
Well, first of all, I had such high regard for my brother Gary. And, your last segment took me out, but I'm going to tell you right now, he's on his best behavior on your show because he had a show last week that took me out. And he said stuff on the radio. I'm like, we ain't supposed to be saying that out loud. So I'm still trying to process that. But everything he's really being good today. But look, Biden pulled out of Afghanistan, but Gary's still dropping radio bombs on his show.
Love it.
The thing is that, and Gary's right there. I mean, honestly, I'm not. Everything he says, I would agree with. This is a challenge. Terry McAuliffe is warmed over. Matter of fact, I don't remember the last time because in Virginia, you can't succeed yourself as governor. So I don't know the last time someone was a governor of Virginia and then came back later on.
What happened? Well, no, you bring up a great point. Gary, what happened?
It was Mills Godwin in the 1960s. Mills Godwin was a Dixiecrat Democrat and served as governor and then came back as a conservative Republican. Not much difference in his politics. He just changed parties. And so that was in the late 1960s. And so
here's my question, though. So here's the question I think we really need answered, Santita, and Gary's more qualified to answer it than me because, even on Twitter this morning, everything is saying that at the end of early voting, Democrats outpaced Republicans and came close to 2020 numbers. Is that plausible? Is that true?
Yes, so far that is true. But what we're seeing is the potential of a massive turnout on election day by Republicans and a tepid response by Democrats.
Yeah. And Santita, it's interesting how it's flipped. Remember when Republicans were more mail-in and early voting, and we were more turnout. And it is interesting how that shifted somewhat. What Gary? What impact is? So is Trump really going to do this rally, this tele rally? Is that going to have an impact?
Oh yeah, because rural Virginia are Trumpites.
And
look. So once again, the urban areas of Hampton Roads, Virginia, and Northern Virginia are the Democratic strongholds. And so, but in those rural areas, yes, the Trump rallies and rhetoric still hold weight.
I mean, and wait a minute, it's a military state. My mother grew up in Virginia in part. And my grandmother was there, and my grandfather was a veteran, and my grandmother worked at the VA hospital. It's a military state. It is a conservative state. People need to stop playing, and they need to stop playing about Trump. Trump is not weak. The media call his name every day. If they wanted to bury him, they could have. They have not done that. So we're going to see.
They're resurrecting him to put his image, his face. Remember now, CNN built a new wing to their colossal headquarters in Atlanta, $26 million on the back of Trump commercials in 2016.
Say that again.
So CNN constructed a new wing to their headquarters in Atlanta on the back of showing images of Trump in 2015 and 2016. And I'm making the point that they're showing his image again and quoting him as they did, 6 years ago. And this is very dangerous because by calling his name, by showing his image, you in effect give him political life.
So I mean,
well, there's one other thing, Santita. You and I didn't talk about this before, and I don't know if a lot of people in your audience are aware of this story. So there are these ads running. Gary, let's hit them to that. So there's this accusation that Youngkin, the Republican, is running, that the Democrats and the Attorney General, Democratic Attorney General, and the whole party covered up sexual assault on a couple of occasions in school bathrooms. And it's not true, but now I'm in Washington today. Like I said, I'm in D.C. today. Your dad and I helping out the Howard students. These commercials, Gary, are running. D.C. market is pretty much the same as Virginia because it's Northern Virginia. So I'm seeing a commercial every break pushing this sexual assault situation. And the story is allegedly a young man who was supposedly trans sexually assaulted a young woman. Gary, what again, you probably know more about that, but they're running those ads every minute.
Well, and that can be effective because the idea is to smear the policy enforcement of Democrats, that they're soft, that they let criminals go, and they're running another commercial the same way here in Richmond about a murderer who was let go by so-called allegedly let go by Mark Herring. But that's an old Republican trick. I mean, Willie Horton, those scare tactics with these types of commercials are not new. The question will be, are they going to turn around voters who aren't already committed to vote against Youngkin?
So, my question is...
And I don't...
Well, really, I want to know, because they're saying that this is tighter than this. Do you think that if Terry McAuliffe wins, what does that mean? If he doesn't win, what does that mean?
If he wins, it means that the Democrats skip by, by the hair of their chinny chin chin. But it also suggests that there is not a major endorsement for Democratic administration in the White House. I mean, Joe Biden should be in the shady rest as opposed to governing the nation. He is not he wasn't compelling before he became president. And now he just seems like, he's looking for, Geritol and bingo game. So that
I told you how you talk.
Yeah, that filters down to mobilizing the electorate. He doesn't give you a national reason to say, you know what, I support the Democrats.
Well, but really, all jokes aside, optics really do matter in politics. I mean, we do not elect overweight presidents. It's unfortunate, but it's true. We want someone who's
presidents.
it's all of that. And so, do you think the Black community is energized? I mean, are women energized?
No.
Okay. Is that why they're worried?
And I'll give you another optic. Santita, I have another optic that's right now today. How do people get mobilized in a party when 48 hours ago you telling people, I've got to pass my plan before I get on a plane and go to Europe, or that's my whole presidency? Who does that? And even people on the Hill were like, man, don't do that. Don't set no deadline. We'll try to figure out this Build Back Better, but you setting deadlines and saying if this isn't passed before I get on the plane, my presidency is over. That does not invoke a morale or enthusiasm. And I'll be honest with you, Rem Barber said to me the other day, he said, Mark, if your whole presidency is based on this, you ain't really working with much. No, but that's what he did.
Not at all. And your communications team is horrible to even approve that kind of messaging.
Right. And then you putting up deadlines that they knew good and well just on process. We just learned this morning, breaking news. And this isn't because of politics. It's process. The Rules Committee cannot move that bill today for whatever reason. It's a scheduling thing. Now, if you know the process, you don't go on TV on Thursday and say my presidency is up. It won't be anything unless y'all get this through today. And you're dealing with Manchinima who don't want to do anything.
Well, I mean, I think you're dealing with corporatists. You're dealing with corporatists who want a particular agenda moved in a particular direction, ultimately. And that is...
That's a different perspective, Santita. Yes, all three are corporatists. But Biden takes left and goes right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he is far from the Manchin cinema.
That's what I'm saying. He's almost like a proxy. They're proxies for him, it seems.
Exactly.
So that's why it bothered me to see this, because look, President Biden said he defeated the socialists. So I think we have to be very, very honest about what we're looking at, which is why I'm hopeful as I see Bernie Sanders saying, look, I see a little bit of daylight when it comes to health care in this Build Back Better bill. And so he's pushing. We're going to have Robert Patillo join the show at the bottom of the hour to talk about that. But Gary, just again, I've got a couple of minutes before we have to go. Tell me, what do you think? Wow. I mean, is there any, what is our takeaway? What can Democrats look forward to tomorrow night? Is there anything?
They can only look forward to squeaking by, and that is never a recipe for any type of momentum politically or otherwise. And unfortunately, there's not a bright picture here. There's not a rainbow at the end of this race tomorrow night. Either way, if he wins, if McAuliffe wins narrowly or loses narrowly, it is still a reflection on the tepid response to the Biden administration and to the regurgitation politically of someone that we didn't need from his first administration in McAuliffe.
Mark,
we haven't talked about the House of Delegates race yet. We haven't talked about the House of Delegates. We talked about the governor.
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing.
Well, we don't talk about down ballot races. Yeah.
The McAuliffe and the Democratic Party, I mean, let's not forget, they intentionally smeared Justin Fairfax, a strong Democrat. He was actually too strong. And so the Democratic Party has eliminated him as a political force and regurgitated McAuliffe. I mean, let's not go past that.
And this is the black lieutenant governor who everyone expected to be running for governor this time.
Justin
I told you how he acts, Santita.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
look, well, Gary and I have been having
He
these
was
we actually had this conversation the other week on this show. Because we talk about we don't candy coat things. I'm polite, but I don't candy coat things on this show. But what we're looking at, I mean, and this is why Gary's here, because I'm very clear that there's an underwhelmed black electorate. That's real. No one wants to talk about it. And you have a very strong, viable black candidate who was buried. That's real. And so, Gary, I know the people on CBS are going to get they're going to get an earful from you tomorrow night. But I cannot wait. I cannot wait to have you back on the show because we want to know what is really happening in Virginia. And of course, everyone can go to WREJ in Richmond and hear his show from 9 to 11 Eastern Standard Time. That is, he's coming up very, very soon. So everybody's sending you much love, Gary. Sending you much love. And Mark, sending you much love, my dear brother. I can't wait to have you back on because we're going to have a lot to talk about in 2022, which begins tomorrow, everybody, on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a minute.
together soon and cross pollinate. I need to have you on my show. I need to be on yours.
Yes, sir. No, we're gonna do it. We're gonna definitely do it.
All righty, brother. Stay strong.
Sending you much
All right,
love.
you too, man.
I'm going to send you their information
Please do.
Yeah, please. Please, yeah.
because you all need to have them on your show. I mean, really.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Compelling.
You've got to. You get politics today. Trying to look at your fingernails. I got you. Understand. Oh my gosh, this is a lot. It's a lot. But I'm
Well,
glad
look, I'm gonna run, y'all. But look, good to talk to everybody.
Sending Attorney Patillo through.
Stay strong now.
Okay, give everybody my love at Howard.
Thanks, Santita.
Thank you, sweetie.
All right, thank you.
And I'm going to have you come back to talk about that too. Robert Patillo,
Good morning. How are you?
how are you?
I'm well.
All right. We got a lot to talk about. I want to talk about this, about Bernie Sanders and election 2020. Virginia's part of it, but there's a lot. I mean, it kicks off tomorrow. Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I am so glad. I'm so glad to have you with us today.
Well, I appreciate it.
Oh, always. Oh, and please send me Dr. I would love to meet Dr. Johnson.
Oh, absolutely. I will.
Okay, everybody, call me at 773-763-9278. Have to be very, very careful. I want to get this. Okay, I'm sorry, honey. There's so much that we are doing. Whew. Y'all, after this, I am fried. Okay, Robert? Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
I need a moment. Oh my gosh. Woo! I really do. I really do. Oh, I can't wait. Everybody, I can't wait. I'm getting away for the holidays. And I cannot wait to do it. As I need a bit of a break, Robert.
I don't know how you do it every day. When I do the morning show 3 days in a week, I feel like I need a trophy.
Oh, you know what? My morning stars make it all worthwhile. They're so wonderful. They get up with me. They have, we have grown quite close over these past couple of years and through the pandemic. They make it all worthwhile. Thank you so much. And Devin Andrakis, who is a fantastic and incredible board operator. I see a big future for him in radio. And it's just, it works out. But the thing is, I've been told by people who do this every day that you need to break it up because you do get burned out. You do. And I was up. I had a couple of applications I was writing up last night. So I when I finally got to bed, it was 1:30, and I'm up at 2. So today I pushed it, and I was up at 2:45. I mean, I was awake because I didn't dare go to sleep. If I went to sleep,
10
only
seconds.
heaven knows what happened. So,
That after show nap is gonna be nice.
oh, if I get it, that's.
Can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Let's talk with Robert Patillo right here on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. Of course, he is on WAOK down in Atlanta. He is the Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push out of Atlanta. And so we're talking today about politics, everybody, because 2022 has now begun. Everyone's talking about Virginia. We just had Gary Flowers from WREJ. Got all my radio people on with us this morning, and of course Mark Thompson from the well-renowned and well-regarded podcast Make It Plain. We were talking about Virginia, but we've got Build Back Better, $1.75 trillion. That could be voted on this week. Apparently, more and more of the progressives have come around. What do you think about that, everybody? What do you think about that? Paid family leave is off the table. 2 years of free community college off the table. I mean, just keep on going with this. But Bernie Sanders says the fight is not over. He wants to strengthen the social spending bill ahead of the House vote. He said, quote, "We are paying the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. The pharmaceutical industry has spent hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars to make certain that Americans pay 10 times more for drugs and the Canadians and the Mexicans than the Canadians and the Mexicans. So the fight continues," he says. He said, "We're working today. We're going to work tomorrow to strengthen that bill. It is outrageous that we continue to pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, even with your insurance." So where do you see all of this going, Robert Patillo? We've got Virginia. We've got Bernie Sanders fighting he's still fighting the fight. You gotta love Senator Sanders because he does not stop.
Well, the question is going to be who's going to blink first in this in kind of this game of chicken. Is it going to be the progressives in the House, or is it going to be the conservatives in the Senate? When you're looking at Manchin, when you're looking at Sinema, they have appeared to be completely intransigent, as in not moving. From the reports of the meeting between Bernie Sanders and Joe Manchin, Bernie Sanders said, "Well, I'm comfortable with $3.5 trillion for the social spending bill or the human infrastructure bill." Again, also, Democrats did a terrible job of branding this. When you allow Republicans to brand it as a social spending bill, that makes people think about socialism, which is a scary word to many Americans. But Bernie Sanders said, I'm comfortable with $3.5 trillion. And Joe Manchin held up a big zero, a big goose egg, and said, I'm comfortable with zero. So these corporate Democrats, these quote-unquote centrists, have shown that they are fine with doing absolutely nothing for the American people because, truthfully, what consequences are there for Joe Manchin? It's not that it's going to affect him for re-election in West Virginia. It's not going to affect his poll numbers. It's not going to affect his money to break this up. And Democrats have not shown the stomach that Republicans have to challenge their own people. There is no well-financed primary challenger breathing down Joe Manchin or Kristen Sinema's throat right now. There is nobody from the left challenging them to giving them at least a belief that there may be some consequences for them. And the president, as I've said previously, seems to be on the side of Manchin and Sinema. We heard during the debates when he said, I defeated the socialist, when he gave a speech this week saying, I'm a capitalist to my core prior to going over to Europe. So this seems to be instead of the Manchin and Sinema on one side of the aisle, it seems like it's Manchin, Sinema, Biden on one side of the aisle, and then Bernie, the progressives, and the 80 million people who put them in office on the other side of the aisle. So it does seem like the progressives are going to blink first. I've talked to many people on the in the House who are of the opinion, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. That yes, they
They've
want
been
paid
talking to
families.
that.
Yes, they want. Oh, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And so many of them are of the opinion now, well, do I really want to torpedo $1.75 trillion, which in any other time would be a massive human infrastructure bill, would be a massive investment in America. But when you had $3.5 trillion floating out there for most of the summer and into the fall, it seems like a drop in the bucket now. So the question is, do you give up the good parts of the bill, particularly the climate change aspects? It's the largest investment ever in ameliorating climate change. So that's your primary issue, as many younger House Democrats have expressed to me. Well, then they're saying, well, I don't want to get rid of that because this may be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do so. And they're willing to come across. So it seems like Manchin and Sinema and Biden are getting their way, and we'll end up winning this game of chicken. So that's why I anticipate happening that the House progressives will blink first.
What do you think will be the consequences?
I think the consequences are going to be a very difficult 2022. For Democrats in particular, because we're seeing this in Virginia right now, where you had a very popular lieutenant governor, Justin Fairfax, who was just ravaged by false accusations, because we still haven't figured out in this country how to separate believing women and believing marginalized groups when they make complaints versus protecting the rights of the individual to actually present a defense, to actually have due process. All the accusations against Justin Fairfax went absolutely nowhere. They evaporated. But what they did effectively do is eliminate him from the race for governor in this year in Virginia, which meant that they could go back and instead of having a young African-American progressive run, they could go to a 1990s Clinton era neoliberal and Terry McAuliffe, part of the corporate Democratic Party. And that's why he's struggling right now. He doesn't have the support of the people. He doesn't have the support of young folks. He doesn't have the support of African Americans. He's instead of being a beacon of the future and what America is becoming, he's a reminder of the past and the things that we've done previously. So this is why they're struggling against Youngkin. I believe that if it was Justin Fairfax without the cloud of everything that happened to him last year, he'd probably be up double digits on Youngkin right now. But what we're also seeing is Republicans are playing a culture war. They're not doing any policy against McAuliffe. They're not running on taxes. They're not running on defense or on those things. They're running on, well, the black people are going to make your kids read Beloved, and they're going to hate you. They're running on CRT. They're running on the idea of transgenders being in girls' sports and assaulting girls in bathrooms. All the things that get conservative white people up and out to vote. That's what they're running on. I anticipate that will be their play going into 2022. That if Biden's unable to get a grapple on Corona, then it's going to be all critical race theory, all socialism, all Marxism, and we're going to see a very polarizing election. And Democrats are going to need enough points on the board, enough pelts on the table to counter that. And I don't know if the social spending bill enough is going to be sufficient to give particularly people like Warnock in Georgia, who has a tight Senate race against Herschel Walker, and many of the House Democrats, to give them enough cover. So my suggestion has been and still remains that Joe Biden should use the power of the presidency to push through many of those very popular executive orders that he can do by himself. The issue is that it is Joe Biden, and his DNA is still the same Joe Biden was known from the 1970s. He's still, he was late to come around on marijuana. He was late to come around on a woman's right to choose. He was late to come around on many of the things that progressives are in favor of. And when we say come around, we just mean be quiet long enough for people to vote for him. We actually still don't know if he actually supports them. But we don't know whether or not the president has the power to, let's say, cancel student loan debt through executive order, just simply tell the Department of Education not to collect it anymore and to put the balance at zero.
He could do that. He could just simply sign an executive order saying that, and then wait for it to get challenged in court, the same way the Trump administration would do with something like the Muslim ban. And I think that would give Democrats something to run on in 2022. He could raise the national speed limit from 70 miles an hour to 80 miles an hour. That's something he can do directly out of the Department of Transportation through executive order. Most people would enjoy that. You could reduce the drinking age from 21 to 18. It doesn't make sense to be able to serve in war and get shot overseas, as we saw many of the soldiers in Afghanistan. The 12 Marines or the 13 Marines who were killed, many of them were 18, 19, 20 years old out there. So how can I get blown up in Kabul, but I can't have a drink in the United States of America? I can drive a big rig, but I can't have a drink. I can be in the sex industry or something along those lines, but I can't have a drink. Most people will support reducing the drinking age from 21 to 18, and that'd be something very popular to get particularly college students out and about to come out and vote in 2022. Executive order to legalize marijuana. What Bernie Sanders suggested is that through executive order, without any congressional action, you could deschedule marijuana, as in have the Department of Justice take it off the federal. Right now, marijuana is a Schedule I drug, meaning it has no medicinal benefits under federal law. It is actually more strictly regulated than cocaine and methamphetamines because they have medical uses. You could completely deschedule marijuana and then also release everyone who is currently in prison. It's got a list from the Department of Federal Prisons. Anybody who is in there on a drug charge and release them, give them a blanket clemency across the board. That will give Democrats a hell of a slate to run on in 2022. Those are things that you do not need Congress for. And so if you put the social spending bill plus legalizing marijuana plus lowering the drinking age, raising the speed limit, and eliminating student loan debt, now we're cooking with gas in 2022. But if it's just $1.5 trillion alone, I don't know if that gets you across the board, particularly when you look at the broad face of history. Normally the party that wins the presidency loses about 30 seats in the following midterm elections, and if the president's approval ratings are under 50%, Biden is right around 42, 43%. Normally, you lose about 60 seats. Democrats effectively have a 5-seat majority in the House, so they want to maintain that. It's going to take some aggressive, progressive, legislative and executive action, but I don't know Joe Biden, the president, is going to do that.
Talking with Robert Patillo, everybody. WAOK Radio down in Atlanta. I'm sorry, but I love Alabama. I love it, love it, love it. Love that lynching museum. It's just such a profound experience. Maybe we all need to have a group trip down there. What do you think, everybody? I think that would be great. We're talking about Election 2022. It is upon us. It starts tomorrow, everybody, formally. We have several big elections. We also have a black man who could become the mayor of New York City. He's been a Republican. He's been what some people call a political maverick, but he has been someone who's been very, very, very much a part of and present in the black community, and looks like he might get in. Looks like he's going to get in. Let me bring on some of these callers. Paul from Seattle. Paul, what's on your mind today?
Well, Santita, I could just respond. I disagree with the guest there. I don't think lowering the drinking age and raising the speed limit is that's kind of a Republican approach. That's what they're doing with COVID. So what we might gain in turnout, I think we would lose 10 times over in lives in young people. So I'm not for that one. And I was of the generation that was 18 years old to drink, and that's not one I'm for. Even though I benefited from it, so to speak, I don't think it really helped me. But in terms of the Build Back Better, there are things that are under the state's control. That is, the drinking age is one of them, by the way. The states are the ones that decide what the drinking age should be. The states also fund the colleges and universities. So my proposal to amend the Build Back Better is this, that the federal government will provide matching funds for community college. So states who are willing to pony up some of their money and start subsidizing their community colleges, the federal government will match. So look, if a state was willing to pony up half, then the federal government would provide the other half, and that would be essentially tuition-free community college. And in states that are willing to be progressive and go forward, those states are going to outcompete the states that are going backwards. And I'm sorry that some of the southern states are those that are doing that, but that's the way it is. I think, I'm kind of for the little red hen approach, that if you don't vote for it, you don't get any. That's what our childhood tale told us, is that if you don't help, you don't get any. So I think we need to take that approach with the states and let the states that are succeeding succeed. I think that's the approach we need to take, because if they're going to be resistant and to every idea, progressive or otherwise, then they need to have what they deserve, which is zero. And by the way, I would reframe the language. It's not progressive versus conservative. It's progressive versus the elite corporatists. The elite corporatists, that's what I call them.
That's what I say all the time. I don't call them moderates or centrists. They're corporatists, period. That's what they are.
They are elite, and you have to make it pejorative. They have to be, they're fine calling us names, so we have to.
Well, I'm not going to call anyone names, Paul. I'm not going to be pejorative. I don't want to go down that road, because I don't want to be like the people who I complain about. So I'm going to stay I'm just going to give them.
They are what they are.
No, they can be that. But I'm just saying, you do as you wish. You do as you wish, but if you hit me, I'm not going to hit you back necessarily. I'm just not going to do it. My father said, the ground is no place for a champion, but guess what? Champions have to take hits. And you go to the corner, you recharge, and if you last until if you get to the end of the match, and you're still standing, you're the one who wins.
Jesus had no problem with the word hypocrite either.
But the hypocrite is not. I'm just not going to call people names. That's not calling someone names. That's an adjective, and that's okay. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. Let's just keep voting. Let's keep registering to vote, and let's keep voting. Let's keep pushing. I'm sending you much love. Let me go to Renee from Chicago. Love you, Paul, out there in Seattle. Renee, what's on your mind today?
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call.
Of course. Thank you.
Joe Biden, he's already secured his place in history as the 46th president of the United States, a position, he's been trying to become president for years, for decades. Mm-hmm. So now that he has that position, he can govern the way he always has. He can govern in a racist way. He can govern to help the corporations as much as he wants to, because he already secured his place. But regarding the progressives in the party and the Democrats in general, the consequences for not passing the Build Back Better Act as it was at first, or as it was watered down to, or then watered down to again, and now watered down to $1 trillion. He passed that, even if it's the most money that they've ever set aside to help the people, it's still watered down, and it makes them look weak that they couldn't push through what they said was best for us. And if they look weak, but on the other hand, the Republicans always, they stuck together and they passed what they wanted, even though it helped the same rich people that the Democrats seem to help. The Republicans are going to win in 2022 if the Democrats don't do something. Democrats are going to lose badly because people perceive them as weak. So some people won't come out, period. And some people will vote for the Republicans just on image alone. But I wish that weren't the case, but I think that's what's going on.
Well, they look like winners. They look strong. That's what you're saying.
Right.
Well, optics do matter. I mean, stay right there. I mean, Robert Patillo, what do you make of that? Optics do matter.
Well, I absolutely believe optics matter. And also, it's about winning the argument with the American people. One of the biggest mistakes the Democrats have made for over a decade now is not getting out there and explaining things to the American people, not selling it, not controlling the language around things. Think about it this way. We talked about this on my show yesterday. A term like cancel culture is really big in conservative media right now. This idea that suddenly all these woke progressive liberals are stopping you from saying what you want. Well, Two Live Crew, when they were bulldozing their albums, that was cancel culture. NWA, not letting them go on tour. That was cancel culture. Banning Farrakhan from speaking at universities. Banning Jesse Jackson from speaking at university. That was cancel culture. Democrats didn't brand it that way. And because of that, Republicans ended up winning the argument on it. This same thing was now, where we're talking about the Build Back Better plan. The Republicans were able to brand it has $3.5 trillion in government spending that's going to go towards socialism. And Democrats did nothing to counter that argument. They got into these deep philosophical, nerdy conversations that went over the heads of the American people. And because of that, you didn't see a just groundswell of national support with the stuff in that bill that was possible. You should have seen, that should have been on the lips of every American citizen. But Democrats never got out there and sold it. They never hit the late night shows. I think I've been saying for weeks. They've never been on local radio. They haven't been on your show. They haven't been on my show. They haven't been on pretty much anybody knows show trying to sell this. It's just like you're trying to sell a movie, or you're trying to sell an album, or you're trying to sell a chicken sandwich. You got to let the people know what's in it in order for them to enjoy it. So I think the problem is they've lost this round already. It's too late to go back to April or May and try to recast this as instead of being a $3.5 trillion liberal socialist Marxist giveaway as being the type of programs needed to help everyday Americans. And until Democrats learn how to win those arguments with and speak to the American people, and not simply speak within your progressive supper clubs or on liberal radio or chat groups, those sorts of things, it's going to be difficult for them to marshal the type of public support necessary to get big things done. James Carville talked about this recently, that a lot of Democrats, particularly younger Democrats, they talk like they're in a women's studies program at Vassar, and that's not the best way to get your average Joe on board when you start talking about all these big words and buzzwords and complicated concepts. You have to break it down to where somebody can understand it so they know they can support it. That blue collar truck driver from Scranton that Democrats seem obsessed with getting to vote for them. When you're talking about Latinx intersectionality and pronouns, you lose them a little bit. Instead of talking about paid family leave, additional years of college, cutting your regulatory burden, giving your vision and dental care as part of Medicare. That's the stuff you need to be concentrating on, but they tend to allow the argument to be marshaled by those folks who are, they want to show off how many degrees and how informed they are. That's not the best way to get, that, what was it back in 2008, that hockey mom from Minnesota, to get her on board in order to support the agenda. So Democrats are going to have to learn that they're going to have to learn how to talk to the regular people they claim they're trying to help, because they've allowed billionaires like Youngkins in Virginia to claim the common man title while all they're really trying to do is help their corporate funders.
We're talking with Robert Patillo, host of his own show on WAOK, the iconic Atlanta radio station, every Sunday from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. You've got to listen to the show. It is fantastic, fantastic. We're talking about election 2022. Election 2022. Richard, if you stay with us just for a hot second. Robert, if you give me about 5 minutes afterwards, I want Richard to be able to give his comment to you. Everyone, you got to look out for election 2022. 2022. It is a big, 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 big deal. Daryl, I hear you. I understand your disappointment. You say, why do I say register to vote? Why do I say continue to vote? Well, if you do not vote, you are disengaged and you do not count. What you have to do is remember, we were in slavery. Black people were in slavery longer than we've been free. We were in slavery almost 250 years. We've been free a little bit more than 150 years. So this whole power game is something that not just black people don't understand. Nobody understands it, because America was not free because we were not. So you have to get in there and get in the fight and really understand power. And you got to flex. You got to flex. And you got to push. And you must let Bernie Sanders and these congresspersons in the upper and lower chamber, in the U.S. Senate and in the House of Representatives, let them know that while before this bill gets voted on, that you want to strengthen the social spending bill. That is what Bernie Sanders has been looking at, specifically prescription drug prices. Why are we paying so much? Even when you have insurance, you cannot afford these drugs that you need. We're watching people ration insulin, Robert. Ration insulin, or they're taking animal grade insulin. Shame, shame, shame. That should not be in America. Why do we not have paid family leave? Why not? Why? Why do we not have 2 years of free community college? Why not? Well, if you don't vote, you have no voice in that. Really. So, Daryl, I hear you, I feel you, but you got to get in there. You got to hang in there. You got to hang in there. And you also have to let people know that you're not playing with them. I'm not telling you who to vote for. Huh, I didn't say that. But you do need to get out and vote. But who you vote for, that's on you. But you got to be involved. You got to be in the game, sweetie. Just got to be in the game. So stay right here. I'm going to get a couple more thoughts from this brilliant Robert Patillo, attorney Robert Patillo, Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, host of his own show on WAOK. And of course, we'll be talking about this election tomorrow, and we'll be getting some more of these Thanksgiving protocols, what you should do to keep yourself safe in a pandemic. I'm Santita Jackson. It's been a joy being with you and all my morning stars. I love you, everybody. Stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and on Santita Jackson and Friends. Devin, thanks for a great show. Love you, everybody. God bless. Let me bring up Richard.
We lost Richard.
Oh, we lost
Richard.
Robert, what's it? But give me some closing thoughts. What should we be looking for tomorrow? Because we've got several races, but what do you think everybody is focused or fixated on Virginia? I mean, because we've got New York City, we're going to get a new mayor there. We've got a race in New Jersey. I mean, we've got some other races. What is it about Virginia that has captivated the corporate media? Is it a corporate candidate?
Well, I think also it's the fact that Virginia is kind of a bellwether swing state. Now, New York is kind of New York.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to see a lot of Republicans, kind of showing up and turning out there. New Jersey has been more of a swing state than New York has been, but in presidential politics, they've been pretty solidly blue. Virginia, on the other hand, is a weird mix where you have Norfolk, you have Richmond, you have Charlottesville, you have progressive areas, you have the D.C. suburbs, Arlington, Alexandria, Pentagon City, and then once you leave there, you're pretty much in Mississippi. And so because of that, there's going to be a very interesting dynamic on which side, which faction of Virginia it goes into political power, and also if this Republican strategy of focusing only on the culture war will be enough. Can a pro-Trump candidate like Youngkin's win on a culture war campaign? Because if he does, then that's all we're going to hear for the next year. You can throw the deficit out, you can throw the budget out, you can throw social spending, military spending. Republicans ain't going to talk about none of it. They are going to fearmonger and scare white people to the polls come hell or high water. So we saw this when Trump won. You saw an entire year of just Trump clones running for office. Our governor here, Brian Kemp, one of those Trump clones who ran on the brass, no apologies, take no mess type of conservatism. We see that with DeSantis. We saw that with Abbott. And many other Republicans decided to model themselves after Trump. So Youngkin wins. We're very much going to see those dark ads for the next year. Transgenders are sneaking into your daughter's bathroom to pull her away at night. The blacks are going to make your children read about slavery and turn your little Cindy into Martin Luther or into Malcolm X, the second coming, those kinds of things. And so I think that's the main thing I'm looking out for, to see whether or not that is sufficient to turn out that Mississippi part of Virginia, and then how that will be replayed across the country for the next year.
If you could hedge a bet, where do you think this is going to go? Because they say the race is tighter than this.
I think it's going to be McAuliffe by a hair. And the reason I say that is just the natural demographics of Virginia work out better for McAuliffe. And we talk about young kids being rich. It's not like McAuliffe is, collecting nickels and dimes down by the gas station to run his campaign. He's very well financed, very well connected, and I do think they will get enough African American turnout in order to push them over the edge. But this is one of the races that did not have to be as close. As I said, that this was Justin Fairfax at the height of his popularity running before all the smear campaign against him, then this would not really be a close race. It'd be nothing we'd be watching. But because it is McAuliffe, who's of that Clinton 1990s corporate Democrat wing and not really a natural fit for today's electorate, very much like Biden, we're going to see him kind of be pulled across the finish line. We've seen Stacey Abrams up there campaigning for him. We've seen Barack Obama campaigning for him. We've seen all the national Democratic figures doing so. So it's all going to come down to how they turn out that vote on Election Day. And also it does help that Virginia does not have many of these draconian voter suppression laws that you have in a place like Georgia or Texas or Florida that makes it easier for them to actually get people to the polls and to count votes.
Do you think that if he does win, if Terry McAuliffe is able to pull it out, do you think Democrats will have learned anything?
I'm hoping they have. I'm hoping they see the same thing that I'm saying, which is this should not have been a close race. And also that the party should start getting behind the young, exciting candidates instead of just keep continuing to nominate their friends to higher and higher offices decade after decade. I'm also hoping they realize they're going to have to get out there and talk to the American people more than 60 days before the election. We're having issues like that here in Georgia where some of the senators that we all broke our necks to get out there and get elected, it's getting hard to get them on the phone. It's getting hard to get them to events to speak out on things. And, sometimes you have to send them a reminder, like, hey, man, look, you got elected. I don't have to support you. Don't come showing up around election time looking for some help because when I needed you, I couldn't get you on the phone. I think that's the thing that we Democrats have to win. Remember that winning does not put you in a club. It makes you a servant to the people, not an overseer to the people. So I'm hoping Democrats take some lessons from this and try to reform this going forward.
You're my servant. I'm not your serf. We need to, we need to stop diminishing what being a servant is. Really.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody fits somewhere. Everybody does. But I think it's going to be very, very exciting to see what's going to happen tomorrow. Do I think the Democrats are going to learn any lessons? No, I don't. I do not. No. They continue to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. They continue to do it. But all because they want to serve corporatist masters. And it's not going to work. This is a time where people have radical problems. They need radical solutions. And guess what? I think you're going to watch the right and the left eventually connect. And that's when you're going to have fire. Robert, I really do. Because everybody is not eating, most folks don't have enough food and people don't have any options. And freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. Thank you, Chris Christopherson, me and Bobby McGee. You don't want to put people in that position. And let me tell you, Robert Patillo, people are in that position increasingly. Like the American Airlines, do you really think it was because of bad weather, everybody? I don't think so. And it just happened at Southwest a couple of weeks ago. Come on. People are feeling all kinds of ways about all kinds of things, and you need to pay attention. What do you think, Robert?
Well, I agree. And I think that also we're going to have to do more to bridge this divide. The first Biden administration has been so packed with all the things they've attempted to get done. Mm-hmm. We haven't worked on that fundamental effort of healing the nation. Right now, Republicans, they have this chant, "Let's go, Brandon." And for those of you who don't know that, what happened was there was a NASCAR race, of course, where the crowd started chanting "F Joe Biden." So the reporter, in order to kind of calm it for air, they said, "Oh, they're chanting 'Let's go, Brandon.'" because the race car's driver's name was Brandon.
Mhm.
So Republicans have kind of taken that as their moniker for them saying F Joe Biden. They say, let's go Brandon.
Freedom
And so
fries.
it's been very popular. Yeah. And so it's been very popular with the QAnon group, with many of the people who stormed the Capitol, the folks who are on 4chan. And it's very much become a white supremacist type of almost code where they talk to each other. I know that most progressives don't know what they're talking about because we don't get into a lot of that, stupid stuff. But so it's become very much they're kind of like, hey, man, let's go, Brandon. They'll write on someone's coffee cup if they see them wearing a MAGA hat if the barista agrees with them, those sorts of things. So it was funny for a few weeks. A Southwest Airlines pilot announced it over the intercom on a flight. So now it's gone from being, hey, it's just a couple of friends, crazy people, to the guy flying the plane with 300 people on it believes in this stuff now. We're having police officers where they're being suspended for having it on their squad cars or having stickers and those sorts of things and T-shirts. The nation is very divided, very broken, and we've done nothing thus far to try to bring it together, to try to bridge that gap. I know a lot of people say, well, why do we need to do that? Well, at some point, it's going to go from a Cold War to a hot war if we don't start bridging those gaps. And the other side has way more guns than the progressives do. And they have law enforcement and the military and a big chunk of the government, as we saw on January the 6th. So if we do not speed up the process of prosecuting and instilling some fear into the hearts of many of these extremists, and then also working across party lines to have those discussions to get the moderates or what passes for moderate today, at least back to operating on the same objective set of facts and the same national narrative, well, it's going to be very difficult to stitch the nation back together. And right now, we're not even having the conversation. We're actually getting further and further apart. It was one thing when conservatives hated Obama. It's like, okay, he's young, he's got a new agenda, he's African American. I understand why y'all are so angry. It was one thing when progressives hated Trump. Trump did all kinds of stuff to be hated. But then when you're saying F Joe Biden, what did Joe Biden do? I think the biggest problem is him not doing enough. And so when you're having that level of hatred for someone like Joe Biden, who's barely appeared in the last year, it tells you that we're so entrenched in our partisan political teams that it's very difficult, even for like a calming grandfather who seems like he'll give you a Werther's original. If he can't bring people together and you're yelling F Joe Biden at baseball games and NASCAR races, well, then we're in a tough spot right now. We're really going to have to put some work into fixing it.
Robert Patillo, everybody. You can catch him every Sunday from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time, 12 to 3 Central Standard Time out there. Between 10 and 2, is it? No, excuse me, 10 and 1. That's right. Let me get it right. For you out there, Carol, on the left coast. And Dave, are you in Western Canada or Eastern? But it's 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. You don't want to miss Robert Patillo. He's a genius. Thank you so much, Robert. I'm going to have you back on this week. If we can get some time in with you, because guess what? I cannot wait. My mother has been talking about election night for like 3 weeks. So I can finally tell her today it's tomorrow. Because she she wants to see what the results are going to be. And so do I. And so do I. But Daryl, I'm feeling you. I want you to rest. I don't want you to get weary. I want you to continue to fight. Look, the price of your liberty is your eternal vigilance. You can't stop. Don't stop, won't stop. Well, there is rest for the weary. Sometimes you need to take a rest. He maketh me to lie down beside the still waters. Rest. But then you must get up and fight again. It just doesn't stop, honey. It just doesn't stop. You can't stop, don't stop, won't stop. Okay, if nothing else, look at Reverend Jesse Jackson, 80 years of age. His Parkinson's is advancing. And he is sitting, and should I say, he is standing with the students at Howard University as we speak. You just cannot stop, baby. You just can't do it. I love you. I love you, Robert. Thank you so much. Devin, love you. Thank you, everybody. Morning Stars, I love you. Love you, love you, love you. I'll see you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. Love you. Bye.